Hi guys, Jason from Mr.Physio. Today I'm going to talk about hip flexors, especially why I don't recommend hip flexor stretching. Hip flexor is one of the biggest muscles in your body that connects your upper body to your lower body. When we sit, this muscle sits in a shortened position, and a lot of people think short and tight hip flexors tilt their pelvis forward this way. And what they do is intense stretching, trying to lengthen up this muscle. But surprisingly, hip flexor stretching can make things worse. Because as soon as your pelvis tilts forward, your body weight also goes forward. So you might end up having this kind of posture with your pelvis sitting ahead of your body line. Then what happens to the hip flexors? This is going to get stretched out. I mean, there is always a stretching force applied onto that muscle. If hip flexors have to fight against this stretching force all the time, they are going to get weak, and weak muscles can't function properly. And one of the main functions of this hip flexor muscle is to keep you upright, especially when sitting. This hip flexor has to pull your spine forward, keep you upright. But weak hip flexors can't help you with that, allowing your spine to lean back. Aww. That's why you shouldn't do this kind of hip flexor stretching anymore, especially when you have this kind of posture. Take a photo of yourself and draw a vertical line. If you find your pelvis and core sit ahead of that vertical line, you should never do this hip flexor stretching, because your hip flexor is already trying so hard to fight against this stretching force. So it's struggling to control that stretching force, and you're adding more stretching to it by that hip flexor stretching. So instead of stretching, they need to learn how to control this stretching force. To teach them how to do it is pretty simple. You just try to contract your hip flexors while applying this stretching force to them. So I'm trying to pull my knee up by contracting my hip flexors, and then trying to push it down with my hands, applying this resistance. That becomes a stretching force in this case. In this way, your hip flexor is contracting while being lengthened, which is called eccentric contraction. So eccentric contraction is crucial to control the stretching force. You can do it in sitting as well. Bring your knee up and try to push it down with your hands while resisting using your hip flexors. So I'm trying to pull my knee up and maintain this position, but my hands are going to win. Of course, you have to keep your back straight, or you can do this exercise in a lying position. Okay, bring your knee towards your chest and try to push your knee downwards while resisting it with your knee. So your knee is trying to going up, but I'm pushing it down with my hands. I'm trying to push my knee up, but my hands are kind of winning, okay? So now we're doing this motion only, but we're going to continue going up and down, up and down. while pushing it with my hands, okay? So today I showed you a simple exercise that can be used instead of hip flexor stretching. This is much better than stretching. In a way, you use your muscle while controlling that stretching force, which you can't teach your muscle with static stretching. I will see you next time. Cheers.